So I live here in the Central Valley, and it was raining a couple minutes ago. Can anyone explain the blue water?
The real McCoy wasn't just a phrase. It meant don't buy a fake, get the original. That phrase came from a genius who kept the world running, but history never wanted us to know about him. His name was Elijah McCoy. Born in 1844 to parents who had escaped slavery, they scraped together enough money to send him to Scotland, where he trained as a mechanical engineer, a rare achievement for a black man during that time. But when he came back to America, the only job he could get was working in a boiler room. While others saw a dirty, dangerous job, Elijah saw an opportunity to innovate. Back then, machines had to be stopped and oiled by hand. Slow, dangerous, and expensive. So he invented a device that oiled machines while they ran. Trains, factories, engines, everything got faster, safer, and cheaper because of Elijah McCoy. His invention worked so well, companies demanded only one version. Give us the real McCoy. His name became the gold standard, but his genius didn't protect him from racism. Elijah had over 50 patents, but had to sell most of them to other companies just to survive. He was shut out of leadership, locked out of wealth. Some believe he died with very little, while his inventions fueled America's rise and made those companies millions. Elijah McCoy didn't just invent, he raised the bar. So next time someone says the real McCoy, know it came from a real one.
This is where the timeline fractures start to become visible. Let's go in. The last major reset occurred between the mid-1700s and late 1800s, roughly 250 to 150 years ago. This reset wasn't just war or disease, it was a global memory wipe. Infrastructure repopulation and narrative overwrite. They used mud floods, fires, engineered natural disasters, and selective rewriting of history to wipe Tartaria and erase what came before. Now here's the strange part. The Capitol buildings, World's Fair structures, old world cathedrals, domed geometries, these were already here. We didn't build them, we inherited them. Photos from the 1800s show cities fully built, yet nearly empty. No scaffolding, no construction, just there. And the stories, always the same, built in a few years, then burned down. Now enter the orphan trains and Cabbage Patch Kids. Between 1854 and 1929, over 200,000 children were shipped across the U.S. by train. No parents, no background, just orphans. But where did all the orphans come from? They were reset survivors, children with no memory, no lineage, placed into repopulated cities to seed a new narrative. Why? Because adults remember. Children can be programmed. Cabbage Patch Kids, the dolls said to be grown in the Cabbage Patch, are symbolic disclosure. Born from the earth, no parents. Just like the orphan trains, the name is not innocent, it's encoded truth. The U.S. wasn't founded and built from scratch. It was inherited, cleansed, and rebranded. The buildings were Tartarian. The reset was intentional. And now the memory is coming back. Because people like you are asking the right questions.
Because this is important knowledge for people to have. So he got a bunch of guys who were deficient in one part of their immune response, and then a bunch of women who were also deficient in one part. The immune response, it's called immune histocompatibility index. And let's say it has 5 elements. So they would find a bunch of guys who were low in 1 or 2 or number 3 or number 4, whatever, and women who had the same different deficiencies. The hypothesis was that a woman who's low in factor 3 won't be attracted to men who are low in factor 3. They'll be attracted to men who are high in factor 3 because then the babies will be healthy, right?
Right.
So he gets these guys to wear T-shirts for 3 days and nights with no deodorant, no showers, no soap, nothing. Then puts the T-shirts in plastic bags. Then he has the women smell the bags and mark on a piece of paper how attractive they thought the men were, based only on the smell of the T-shirts, right? And he found that with 80% of the women, they chose as he predicted, that they chose the men high in the thing that they were low in, and they avoided the men who were low in the thing that they were low in. But in about 20%, they seemed to be choosing randomly. So he went back and looked at the women again and found that those 20% were on birth control pills.
Whoa.
So the birth control pill short circuits that response.
Whoa.
So think of how many couples have gotten together when she's on the pill and they both like Louis C.K. Joe's looking into the distance. Was she on the pill when I met her? I talked about this at an interview in San Francisco on the PBS station down there, and as I'm talking, the guy's going, making the gesture like that happened to me, but be quiet, don't say it. And after the interview, he's like, dude, that's exactly, my wife went off the pill and she was done with me. She didn't want me sleeping in the same bed. She didn't want me in the same house.
Spooky.
A lot of marriages are falling apart because they got together when the woman couldn't smell his compatibility. And
1.4 million women in America do OnlyFans. 1.2 million is between 18 and 24. What percent of women, how many women in America are between 18 to 24? I find out roughly 10 million women. So just on OnlyFans alone, 10% of women in that age group are on OnlyFans. So there's only 10 million women between 18 to 25. Then I decided to think more about the consumers. Who is consuming OnlyFans? And I found out that 82 million American men subscribe to OnlyFans. Now, to think about how big that number is, how many people are in America? 165 million men are in the United States. And they're telling me that 82 million out of 162 million are subscribed to OnlyFans. Of the 82 million men subscribed to OnlyFans, 90% are married. 87% of OnlyFans users are male and 68% of OnlyFans users are white. So the average OnlyFans customer is a white married man.
We don't go to another country to bring democracy. We go there for their resources, oil, metals, cheap labor. We don't go to bring democracy. We took this land from the Indians. We stole it. After we stole all the land we need, we put up the sign, "Thou shalt not steal." Democracy is a con game. It's a word invented to placate people, to make them accept a given institution. All institutions sing, "We are free." The minute you hear freedom and democracy, watch out. Because in a truly free nation, no one has to tell you you're free.
These are all the military bases the United States has around the world. You know, no other country has this. Just the United States has this. Nobody else does this. China, Russia, they don't have bases all over the world. Who does? We do. Because that's how capitalism ends up. You have to use a gun to keep it going. And you have to become fascist. And this is why our country is going down the shitter. And we're ending like all great empires end. We're overextending militarily while we won't take care of our own people at home. That's where your money's going, because your government is 100% corrupt. Not regular corrupt. It's 100% corrupt. This is called corruption. Do you see this? Do you know what this is called? This is called $1 trillion a year in corruption, because that's all this is. These people are there, these military bases are there to make sure American corporations can extract natural resources from these places. Look at all the bases we have outside of China. Look at this. Here comes South America, Central America. Look at that. Can you imagine if China had these many bases in South and Central America or anywhere?
Yeah, right.
Can you imagine if China had all these bases in the Middle East? Imagine.
In Memphis, Tennessee, Elon Musk's artificial intelligence company, xAI, opened a massive data center known as Colossus last year. The facility is next to historically black neighborhoods and runs on 35 methane gas-powered turbine generators, which emit significant amounts of nitrogen oxide and other toxic chemicals.
Elon Musk is polluting the air of Tennesseans. He is continuing and perpetuating environmental racism and environmental degradation in our community. This project is an application for 15 gas turbines, but we know today that they have 35 turbines. And yesterday, a report showed 33 of those in operation, despite the fact that the mayor of Memphis said only 15 of them were being used, because that's what xAI had told him. They are liars. They are abusing our community, and they're exploiting us. And it's having horrible ramifications. 17.2 tons of formaldehyde being sprayed into our air because of these gas turbines. over 130 tons of nitrogen oxide, making them a larger polluter than the Memphis International Airport, is happening right now in our community. And elected officials and appointed officials have a responsibility to the people who they were elected and appointed to serve, not to the billionaires and the oligarchs who are misusing and abusing their authority to hurt our community.
And I'd say the final thing that we're going to have to watch out for, and we saw this with social media after the fact, is the relationships kids are going to build with these systems.
So I'm going to show you the new map of the United States of America, and you may not be able to see this very well. We have 50 states in the United States, but this is mega regions. Mega regions. Mega regions. Mega, large. Mega regions. These are the city-states. These are large cities that are being made larger. Now remember I told you that the gray area is the wildlands. That's going to be the area that no one will have access to. And you know, I haven't told you anything about myself. I was a legal witness, an expert witness in land use and land valuation for my government, for the State Department of Transportation. Expert witness, testified in court. And I found out about this because I saw that people were not being able to use their land. And I looked behind that and I found Agenda 21. This is true. Okay, the federal government of the United States is doing this, is in process of creating mega regions, which are essentially crossing national boundaries. This is Cascadia. It used to be a portion of Washington State, Oregon State, Idaho, and Vancouver area, British Columbia in Canada. The Southern California and Texas Triangle areas include part of Mexico. This breaks national boundaries, it breaks state boundaries, it breaks county boundaries. It's also a project of the Ford Foundation and the Rockefeller Foundation. Regionalization and world government. You use trade agreements to destroy boundaries, and you actually cannot make local law that breaks those treaties.
The South is not half as bad as San Francisco. You want me to tell you about San Francisco? I'll tell you about San Francisco. The white man, he's not taking advantage of you out in public like they're doing down in Birmingham, but he's killing you with that pencil and paper, brother. When you go to look for a job, can you get a job? Can you get a job, Winkle?
This is San Francisco, Americans pretend does not exist.
That's from the James Baldwin documentary, where he compares San Francisco to the South. As someone who grew up in California and lives here today, I think it's one of the best depictions of people living against the polite to your face but stab you in the back neoliberalism that still exists in the West Coast cities. The movie shows Hunters Point, the Bayview, and the Fillmore in the 1960s as politicians and business people got together and bulldozed black neighborhoods, and talks about how black politicians use black community in a way that upholds white supremacy.
A celebrated American doctor once admitted to murdering his own patients, spewing racist rhetoric, and calling for the extermination of an entire island, and he got away with it. This is Dr. Cornelius Rhodes, hailed as a cancer research pioneer, but hiding a horrifying secret. In 1931, Rhodes was sent to Puerto Rico to study anemia. Instead of helping, he wrote a letter bragging about killing patients and even experimenting with cancer on them. In that letter, he wrote of the Puerto Ricans, "They are beyond doubt the dirtiest, laziest, most degenerate and thievish race of men ever inhabiting this sphere. What the island needs is not public health work, but a tidal wave or something to totally exterminate the population." He also went on to write, "I have done my best to further the process of extermination by killing off 8 and transplanting cancer into several more. The latter has not resulted in any fatalities so far." When that letter leaked, he tried to pass it off as a joke, and there was outrage. An investigation was launched, but nothing ever happened to Rhodes. The US just let him off the hook. Not only did he avoid any punishment, but by the 1940s, he was a key figure in the US Army's Chemical Warfare Service. Later, as the director of the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, he helped pioneer chemotherapy, but his crimes were completely buried. In the end, Dr. Cornelius Rhodes exemplified a chilling reality. In the right circles, a man could confess to murder and experimentation on human beings, yet still be honored as a medical pioneer. His name was nearly enshrined in the annals of history without reproach, until Puerto Ricans refused to let the truth be forgotten. It took over 70 years for his name to be removed from a medical award. But was that even justice? The dark history of Cornelius Rhoads is a chilling reminder of how scientific progress has often been built on exploitation, and how the lives of colonial subjects have been too easily dismissed as disposable. How many more great men have dark secrets like this?
Head, like an African. Lift it up there. Come on. Yes, put it on there. Come on. Come on. You have to know how to do this. This is like in your blood. Ow. There we go. You got this. Okay. Now get it centered on there. Keep your head still. Oh, that's pretty heavy. Oh gosh. Right, just get it on there centered. There we go.
How cartoonishly racist do you have to be to where like a black man with no legs who's running away from you is somehow still scaring you enough to where you just have to start unloading? The police want this to be tried in a civil court with no jury. The judge has been like, yeah, no, you're going to stand trial. And this is the cop's worst nightmare because, as you just illustrated, they are going to have to defend themselves in court.
There's just no way it doesn't look stupid. There's just no, I mean...
It's just a fucking insane story.
Y'all know the Book of Mormon pretty well? I mean, I'm not a scriptorian, but I know it pretty well. I've heard a story or two. What does the Book of Mormon say about how black people get dark skin?
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
Those who remain neutral in the battle were cursed to be born with black skin. This is the Mormon explanation for the Negro race.
The first time I saw this cartoon, I was still a totally active member of the Mormon Church. And when it came to this point, and it explained this portion about how black people were less valiant in the pre-earth life, so they're cursed with black skin, I thought, that's totally not true. We don't believe that. That's just anti-Mormon propaganda. Unfortunately, it does turn out that it is completely true and that there's a long history of this doctrine, but it was not taught to me because the Mormon Church has attempted to totally brush it under the rug. In the book Mormon Doctrine from 1966 by Bruce R. McConkie, he expressly explains this doctrine. Those who were less valiant in pre-existence and who thereby had certain spiritual restrictions imposed on them during mortality are known to us as black people, though he says Negroes. To date, the Mormon Church has never apologized for the damage done by this racist doctrine. They just try to pretend like it never happened.
Take off your hijab and get a job.
You are literally...
I'm literally in your face, that's right.
You're disrespecting my religion.
Why are you wearing a mask?
You want someone to bend you over and fucking rape you like they're doing to the Jews in fucking Palestine?
Fuck all you niggas. Fuck all you niggas.
Has to do with religion.
Humanity, bitch.
Get the fuck out of my face.
No. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, who invited you here? Go back to jihad.
Burn that flag. Where's it? Like your mother. Yeah, like it. Burn it. Oh.
Go listen to your master. Pussy. Pussy.
עזה היה שחורה, היה פח זבל.
וואלה, איזה ניגס קנים.
אתם רוצים לעזור לאפריקאים, תיסעו לאפריקה. אתם רוצים לתת להם אוכל, לכו תיתנו להם שם. Forget Africa. Forget Africa. We ain't as much as we can, motherfucker.
I did a video on Akuna Matata. In Japanese, Akuma is the name of the devil. So Akuna means evil. Akuna Matata means many evil demons. And you might go, okay, well, it's Japanese. We're not going to talk about Japanese. Akuna Matata in Swahili means there is no worries, supposedly. But in Zulu, Akuna Matata means there is no father. And Zulu happens to be the primary language that the Lion King songs are sang in. Zulu and Swahili. But they told you, no, that song is in Swahili. It's not in Zulu. And what happens in the story of Lion King? Oh yeah, the dad dies. That movie is like literally targeted to the African-American community. We've got Mulan in Asia. We've got Snow White in Germany. India, you've got Jasmine. But when it comes to Africa, they make the movie about animals. That's a little bit racist, isn't it? Why didn't they just make it like, you know, African movie about the princess there? And then you look into like who runs this, and they're all people tied to the occult, to that area that we're not allowed to talk about, where they wear their little funny hats. Yeah. When you get down to it, you realize like the highest order of witchcraft is the cabal.
I don't know how many children you need to see blow up before you realize there's something wrong with these people we call Israelis. And you know what? They're not people. See, I call them demons, and I'm not saying that for some effect. I don't know what else to call them but demons, because they're the only people I've seen on this planet that go into chat rooms on Telegram and laugh at dead civilians, specifically children. There's a telegram of 122,000 Israelis laughing at the baby that was decapitated in Rafah. Laughing at him and the father holding it. Is that human to you? Does that sound like a person? The most moral military, the most wonderful people, the nation of priests, the light unto the nations, the chosen people. Chosen by who? Chosen by who? You know, the worst part of this, I can expect that from demonic Israelis. I expect that behavior. What breaks my heart is Americans and other people who support these people. They support them. Well, that's war. Oh, so October 7th happened. People died there. Oh my God, it's the worst thing since the Holocaust. But when you see these tens of thousands of civilians getting blown to pieces, well, that's just the way it is. That's just war. That's just war. Americans are saying this. Boomer Americans and all these Zionists, Christians, that's just the way it is. Yeah, it's terrible, but you try to argue with these people. You try to tell them why it's wrong. You know what? Stop trying to tell them. Start showing them the videos. Shove it in their face. Be like, this is Christian? Blowing up this baby is Christian? Christ would do this? And shame them. Shame. This is what they do? This is good? This is what Jesus would do, you sick fuck. And start shaming them like you'd shame a pedophile. We are beyond arguments at this point. We need to start shaming people who support these demons blowing up children, because that's what they are. So just like you would shame a pedophile, start shaming Zionists everywhere they show their fucking head. You shame them, and you show the people what they're doing. No more arguing.
As I said, if you look at who the ones are who are starting wars, it is your country, the United States, and along with Israel as well. And that is just the reality. If you remove yourself from Western propaganda, that is always what is done when they want you to convince you to do new wars. Oh, don't worry. It's just going to be a few people who die. It's going to be over very quickly. If Iran really is this great threat that he's telling you they are, why would Iran just sit by and accept are going and bombing their country without starting major instability and major war? We heard this, all the same stuff from Saddam Hussein. He repressed his people. He exported terrorism in the Middle East. We need to change his government. Once we change his government, there's going to be democracy flourishing all throughout the Middle East. We ended up killing close to 1 million Iraqis, if not more, and lost tens of thousands of people either to casualties or to death from our own country, none of which was told to the American people before they sold that war as well. So yes, you can hear and it's not just Iraq, by the way. It was the war in Libya, which we were told we're just going into, put a no-fly zone over Benghazi. We changed that regime. We turned away and left, and that country ended up with anarchy and slavery and all kinds of migrant crises. We destroyed Syria with the CIA war, where we fought on the same side as Al-Qaeda and ISIS because there were Syrian exiles saying Assad is the greatest dictator. We were told, no, Assad is the new Hitler. This is propaganda that is given to you over and over and over, and I think our responsibility as Americans is to finally say we are not supporting more wars in the name of this propagandistic framework.
This man built the engine for a warship with his bare hands and scrap metal. But the law said he wasn't even a person, so he never got any credit for it. You've probably never heard of him before, and that wasn't by accident. His name was Benjamin Bradley. He was born enslaved in 1830 and received no formal education. But while working in a printing office and later at a U.S. Naval Academy, he taught himself math and engineering using old books and spare tools. Using nothing but scraps and a piece of a cannon, Benjamin built a working steam engine. The Navy was so blown away, they gave him more resources. He built a larger version strong enough to power a warship, one of the most advanced ships of the 1800s. But Benjamin was enslaved. That means he couldn't file a patent and couldn't profit from his work. Under the law, his invention belonged to someone else. He used what little money he did make to buy his freedom, but he died unknown and unrewarded. Benjamin didn't have textbooks, funding, or rights, just brilliance and grit. And he still changed the future of naval engineering. Don't let history erase him again. Share this. Let's keep his name alive for future generations. Benjamin Bradley.
I want you to look closely at this photo and let me know if you see anything wrong. What do you see in this photo? Father helping his daughter do dishes? Maybe an older brother? Well, no. This is 22-year-old preacher Charlie Johns, and this is his 9-year-old wife, Eunice Winstead. In 1937, in the hills and hollers of Hancock County, Tennessee, preacher Charlie Johns here married 9-year-old Eunice. She had just finished the 3rd grade. She still played with paper dolls, and she liked to run outside barefoot because she's a literal child. But Charles didn't see a child. Charles saw a bride. And what's worse, her parents agreed. And for the whopping sum of $1, they married her off to this man. And if you're wondering the conversion, that's about $22 and change in today's money. That's all their daughter's childhood was worth, $1. And at the time in Tennessee, there was no minimum age for marrying, although Charlie and Eunice had to go across state lines to find a clerk that would be willing to sign off on it. And when they did, she was so small, she had to stand on a stool to sign the paperwork. Now, when this all happened, it made national headlines. People were outraged, but nothing happened. No one was arrested because no laws were broken, and no one intervened. In fact, when her parents were questioned about it, her dad was like, yeah, well, we married her off. Her mom was like, yeah, Charlie's a good man. There's nothing wrong with it. In fact, her mother even said that Eunice was a good girl and Charlie would take care of her. Now, after they were married, she had to go back to school. And one day while at school, she was being mischievous and the teacher whipped her, which was something that was common back in the day. Well, her husband got so mad about it, he pulled her out of the 4th grade and she no longer went to school after that. She gave birth to their first child at 15, had a total of 9 children. By the time she was 18, she was almost married for an entire decade. But here's the kicker. When their 17-year-old daughter wanted to marry a 20-year-old man, 3 years difference, they said no, that she was too young. She needed to find somebody more suited to her age. The irony. But let's call this what it is. Even back then, it was grooming. A grown man, an adult, a preacher, isolated a 9-year-old little girl, was enabled by society and the child's parents, the people who were supposed to protect her. He took her out of school. He got her pregnant as a 14-year-old girl where she had the baby at 15 and robbed her of everything her childhood should have been. But let me get real with you for a moment. In 40 states, 40 of them, some form of child marriage is still legal. Some as young as 12 or 13, as long as a judge or parent signs off, and often this is to adult men. And once they get married, all the rights and protections that they have as a child are gone, but they're too young to have all the rights and protections that an adult has, and they ultimately fall through the cracks.
We are now giving kids access to an infinite, never-ending opportunity to engage with an imaginary friend, something that is always on, can answer all of their questions. That is a recipe for a new type of addiction. And we have to really be looking out for this. We kind of missed the boat on smartphones, and now we're all trying to get them back out of the classrooms. We can see this line of sight directly with AI systems and chatbots. And this isn't, of course, all on educators. This has to come to, tech companies, how we design these systems, age gating them. But something to look out for is this kind of new addiction that might form between kids and chatbots. And that is not going to end up well. And do our best to bring parents on board with that. So even if that's at parent-teacher interviews, just casually saying, look out for the amount of time your kid spends chatting with a chatbot. I noticed they were a little bit more disengaged in class. That could be where. So this is another area that we have to apply foresight to, but we can see that line of sight happening quite clearly if we don't intervene.
What is a trans gay man? Biologically female, but we're trans men and we're gay. We like guys.
So you're straight.
This comment says there's a correlation to white women having to actually do domestic work and the rise of convenience food. They always needed help. Oh yeah, like slave in a box. Oh, y'all ain't know about slave in a box? Come here, come look at this here. In 1888, the Pearl Milling Company created a self-rising brand of pancake mix. And to promote it, they used an image from old vaudeville and minstrel show posters. And they named her Aunt Jemima. And to further market it, particularly in the 1950s, when white middle-class households first started losing domestic labor, they started marketing it as slave in a box because the pancakes, the hot cakes, the whole cakes, whatever you want to call them, they came out so good it was like having a slave right in your kitchen. So to the trad wives making the Little House on the Prairie content, blaming feminism for why they have to go to work, A better concept to criticize is capitalism, because after the fall of free or cheap domestic labor, instead of trying to become more active participants in the community that is your household, they decided to be hyper-capitalists instead and create a bunch of products to fill those gaps. Automatic washers, dryers, dishwashers. That plus that cute little invention called the microwave, baby! Yeah, we also get a bunch of convenience food, which are just hastily modified versions of old family recipes that they stole from the black and brown domestic workers.
Oh my god, I love your hair. Oh my god, thank you so much. It's so fluffy. Are you okay?
Can we I just do the question again and then you can pop in?
Yeah.
You mentioned actively spreading AIDS?
There was a unit in from SIMA that one of the things was that we went into African countries.
And how was that done exactly?
Through inoculation.
Through vaccines?
Yeah, through vaccines. Pretending to inoculate people and that type of thing.
The idea being to kill black people?
Yeah, to eradicate black people. You must understand the concept was that AIDS was a killer. It was incurable at that point in time, so it was led to believe that if you infected people, it was the quick, non-militaristic approach to eliminate black people.
And that is something you know for a fact, that AIDS was actively being spread to other countries?
Yes, to African countries.
I don't believe we're on the eve of destruction.
There's too many people, and we'd like to see people have fewer children and better ones.
And then this is a demonstration of that?
This is a little taste of what's to come if we keep on having more children and worse ones. It's just less food for everybody and more crowding, and it gets pretty unpleasant.
I can't figure out from this if you're an optimist or a pessimist. I assume you're troubled about the state of the world, and yet you're doing something you hope will have a bearing on rectifying that. How do you place yourself?
I've wondered about that. I think everybody in here lives someplace that isn't either optimist or pessimist. We're deeply concerned, but if we were hopeless, we wouldn't be doing anything, right?
It's the damn road right here. Well, I'm not sorry.
Get in the house.
No, this ain't right.
I tell him to move that car.
I'm gonna call the police if y'all don't do something.
Sir, it's an afterpass of a
I don't care about all that crap.
You can't say
Oh,
that.
wow.
That's like crap. You gotta
I don't like you running my neighborhood.
We're not running your neighborhood. I don't know what's wrong.
I live right there. I live here for a good while.
James, well, don't bust me up. Go get
the keys so I can move your car. She say she don't want your car in
No,
the
you
driveway.
blocking my path to back
My
out.
car's not blocking
their
their driveway. They can get out their driveway. Hey, go get it.
Don't block my driveway.
James, you can talk to people better than that.
No, hey, I don't like it.
Don't do that. Mr. James, if you wanted to beg back, you could and get out, Mr.
I can
James.
call some records and get this shit moved.
Stop. No, you can't. Come on. Oh, that's so mean of you,
That
Mr.
is-
James.
no,
Today
no.
is Saturday. Come here. You know all that
Move
other
it,
stuff
move
is
it, move
way
it.
back in the Stop. day. We ain't going for that shit, James.
I ain't going either.
That's crazy.
This is a neighborhood. It ain't designed for the hood.
James, stop.
Until you hate me, and I'm gonna show you.
Listen, I was once dumb too. I mean, I wasn't quite as goofy as this dude, but I was pretty fucking stupid. But with the advent of social media and the wealth of information at our fingertips, there is no excuse for ignorance in 2025. Why the fuck are people still proud of whiteness? White pride is literally rooted in the politics of white supremacy. First of all, whiteness is not real. It's a social construct. Whiteness was literally created in the transatlantic slave trade to oppress African people, black and brown people, what we call them now. Why did this happen? Because some elite Europeans could count, and they realized that they would be overtaken by the other poor Europeans and the poor Africans. if these groups ever decided to unite.
What in the get out is going on here? So I saw this on X, y'all, and I had to share this with y'all. So this couple, this interracial couple, went on a date, right? Now this dude posted this on Facebook originally and it went viral. He said, "This is why I don't usually date outside my race." Now, if y'all have never seen the movie Get Out, you better go watch it. So basically he went out with this girl. They went on a date. That was the picture of them. And then she texted him saying, "I definitely enjoyed our night out, but I don't think my parents can find out about us, ... He said, "Same here, and why?" And she said, "They despise black guys. My last black boyfriend, let's just say it didn't go well. They literally set him up to be put in jail for life for something he didn't even do. Google Wellington. I really like you, but I don't want anything to happen to you." Not giving his government name. And then he replied and said, "I like you too, and yeah, that's crazy. I went to school with him. Maybe if you sat down and had a conversation with them, they'll loosen up."
Imagine being arrested just because your roommate is a different race from you. Well, that was the reality of life under Jim Crow in the US. Let's get smarter in seconds about Jim Crow. So Jim Crow was an umbrella term for the state-enforced racial segregation laws, customs, and practices across the United States, not just in the South. You may associate it with the colored-only and white-only signage, or maybe you've heard of the Montgomery bus boycotts. Well, that was a protest against Jim Crow laws. The name Jim Crow never actually appeared in legislation. It was a racial slur used against black people as early as the 1830s, and it came from minstrel shows. Minstrel shows were characterized by white performers using blackface to imitate and denigrate black people, our culture, our history, and our reality of oppression. Jim Crow laws included redlining or the denial of financial services to a person based on their race or ethnicity, sundown towns, or the racist laws, intimidation, and violence that dictated that non-white people had to leave white neighborhoods by sundown, which existed all over the US, including California. Anti-miscegenation laws, which were bans on interracial marriage, relationships, or cohabitation. That means living together, which existed so that the white race could stay pure.
Hey, we're camping in this beautiful state park in Texas, and it's been raining, and the water that's coming out of the sky is blue. And it's not this tarp, because it's happening on this tarp too. Look at that. This is crazy. Are they chemtrailing us in Texas?
Live floaters are parasites. You'll see it when you close your eyes. You can see them in front of your vision. And they're not moving. They are dead. And that's often where they are dumped into places they shouldn't be, because you've started parasite detoxing before your elimination channels were open. So the first and most important things to do before you even start killing off any parasites is to make sure your channels of elimination are open, so you're actually ready to get them out of your system. Then you want to kill them and add binders to carry them out.
Quando você vai no restaurante, pede o seu prato favorito, aí chega a grelha para você assar ali na mesa. Olha o que sai de dentro.
So one is that people eat too much meat, right? And if they were to cut down on their consumption on meat, then they would it would actually really help the planet. But people are not willing to give up meat. Yeah, you know, some people will be willing to, but other people, they may be willing to, but they have a weakness of will. They say, wow, this steak is just too juicy. I can't do it. I'm one of those, by the way. So, you know, but so here's the thought, right? So it turns out that we know a lot about, we have these intolerance to, for example, I have milk intolerance. And some people are intolerant to crayfish. So possibly we can use human engineering to make it the case that we're intolerant to certain kinds of meat, to certain kinds of bovine proteins. And there's actually analogs of this in life. There's this thing called the Lone Star tick, where if it bites you, you'll become allergic to meat. I can sort of describe the mechanism. So that's something that we can do through human engineering. We can kind of possibly address really big world problems through human engineering.
When is kosher wine not kosher? When it's touched by an Ethiopian Jew. That's what hardline rabbis told the Barkan winery in Israel. No kosher certificate for you if Ethiopian workers touch the wine. The winery pulled its Ethiopian staff off the production line. Cue public outrage.
Black people make up 22% of the poor in this country, but only get 14% of the benefits, while white people make up 42% of the poor and get 69% of the benefits. Which is weird because aren't we supposed to be the Michael Jordans of welfare?
If you are struggling for your genetic survival, then the threat to your genetic survival has to become a target. And the black male is perceived as the threat to white genetic survival. It's because only males, whether they're white, black, brown, red, or yellow, can impose sexual intercourse. Females cannot impose sexual intercourse. So if the male and if the black male is perceived consciously and or subconsciously as the genetic threat, then he has to be attacked. And so this is what we see, whether it's unemployment, incarceration, failure in school, because there is war going on.
Blacks in the South have such a low social status that you simply can't be seen in public with them and still expect to have any respect.
Time to help him try to go get go to the barber shop. That's how the American barber know he not the full-blood Chinese. They say don't cut no hair. They put that way.
Civil rights movement helped the Chinese to attain certain status among the white world, more or less. Whereas we didn't have anything gained in the black world because they didn't have nothing for us to step into. Well, you know, we didn't march. Is that what you mean? Why didn't we get out and march? And well, I guess the best answer is that I'm a coward.
I don't think that they will marry black, my children. Personally, I think that Chinese people tend to, you put me on the spot. Chinese girl told me that she doesn't trust them. She don't like black kids. She said they don't go with her color because they think they'll steal things and they'll rob people, kidnap, and all that.
You call him a child? Did you call the child the word?
If you want to know what to do, I have updates on Shiloh Hendricks, the adult woman I'm sure we've all heard by now who attacked a black autistic child on the playground for taking one of her kids' toys, something children often do. And now she's going mega viral on alt-right Twitter. Here you can see she's doubling down on calling the kid the N-word. And she's now successfully raised over $500,000 on Give Send Go because we did successfully get her GoFundMe taken down. She's doubling down on what she did to that child. Oh, and the adults trying to intervene afterwards that she also started racially attacking. She's now profiting off of racism, and some of the comments are truly horrific.
And on television we saw an ad for a lady selling breakfast food who was bragging how she had 6 kids. Well, she tripled the population all by herself.
Someone asked one of the young girls taking part in this hunger show, "Aren't you afraid of simply being written off as freaks doing your thing?" And she replied, as far as she was concerned, the freaks were the ones on the outside who were continuing to overpopulate and explode nuclear weapons, and she said, like you and me, use too many paper bags, and most of all, those who won't acknowledge there's a problem.
He says he was forced to make old food look fresh. That's why he secretly recorded his supervisor admitting tampering with best before dates is industry standard.
Every store does the same thing. All the other stores do the same.
At his home, Safari demonstrates what he says is done at work. He takes cheesecakes weeks past their best before dates, adds new toppings, and sells as fresh.
I decorate it, and I'm selling expired stuff for...
In a national online call-out, Marketplace hears from grocery workers at smaller stores and big chains, sharing stories of food tampering. He used to work in a Toronto area supermarket. He shows us how he was told to give old meat new life.
If it's like this, we would dabble in a little bit of blood, throw it into the meat mincer with some redder meats, and then all together it would make it look red. And then we put it back up on the shelf.
At the University of Guelph, a microbiologist simulated what grocery insiders told us they do. He discovered toxins and bacteria linked to serious illness.
You cannot make this up. The KFC, KGC, that's pretty damning. This is as damning as it gets, okay? Wendigo is a cannibal spirit.
And Wendigo psychosis is an actual condition.
Dude.
Or you crave McRibs. I want to eat them.
They're feeding you humans 100%. They're admitting it. And God lets them do it because this is how they manufacture consent.
Yo,
and they're telling you they're doing it.
You know how Wendy's got the square burgers?
Yeah.
Wendy's got square patties. So that ties into the circle, Knights of the Golden Circle. The circle is God's shape because it's just natural. Right. The circle is natural. The square is human shape because it contains right angles, which don't really exist in nature. So
yeah,
they're encoding the shape of a human in the patty, not the shape of a human, but the representation.
No, it is. They call that squaring the circle in Freemasonry and in secret, occult circles. Squaring the circle. The square patty on the round bun is quite literally squaring the circle. And then the Vitruvian man, that is what the Vitruvian man is encased in, is a circle and a square. He's inside the circle and the square. So it is kind of the measurement of man in a way too.
And it's interesting that in alchemy, right, the Philosopher's Stone, some people have speculated that you need like a human to create it, like a human life, right?
We can clearly see those hands are not human. Definitely not female hands. You can see it noticed itself shifting. Two very odd things happen here. Her right hand grows twice the size, and her left hand grows multiple fingers. Watch carefully.
Since fiscal year 2021, executive agencies have spent more than $4.6 billion on furniture alone. That amount could buy 9.2 million American families a modest $500 kitchen table. During the peak years of the COVID emergency, from 2020 to 2022, agencies spent $3.3 billion on furniture, even as work migrated to Zoom. The SEC managed to spend $700,000 furnishing a single conference room in New York. And social distancing guidelines failed to keep even the Centers for Disease Control from buying solar-powered picnic tables with charging ports that by their own rules should have sat unoccupied. And an added burden for taxpayers is that many spaces are in long-term disrepair, as we mentioned before. Federal buildings need $370 billion in fixes on high-end pieces.
They like to talk about Ibrahim Traoré as if he is alone. I get so many questions on the topic of Ibrahim Traoré. Here's a motivational but subtle take. They single Ibrahim out so that you, the masses who are not educated in geopolitics, think that there is only one guy with a following who is challenging the West in the Sahel. They don't show you General Chiani of Niger and Goita of Mali who stand side by side with Ibrahim Traoré. They control a huge area in the Sahel of 2.4 million square kilometers. 71 million people, 85% of which are Muslim. And there are many neighboring nations like Chad, Guinea, and Senegal who are friendly with the Sahelian nation. And there are many leaders who came before him and who will come after him. So even if the wicked ones try A'udhu Billahi against him, they want you to think that the change is gonna stop. But it's not gonna stop because Ibrahim Traoré is just a spokesperson for a people's movement.
We work with young people that want to burn things down. We work with kids that are on the spectrum of ADHD and autism. So you telling them about road, it means nothing to them.
Yeah.
So you have to learn and understand neurodivergence. You have to understand trauma. You have to understand what these things and spectrums are. You have to understand why are some kids fascinated with Rambo knives? Why are some kids fascinated with bullets and guns? And maybe when you have that understanding of what that is, and then you learn of interventions and ways in which you can apply it, then the story that you come with, which is back in the day I was that, it evolves to another level.
Yeah.
Because then you realize it's not that story anymore. Because now I actually have the skills, I've got the tools and the attributes to help this young man, because it might not even be about road. It might be because they've got a learning difficulty. But what do you know about learning difficulties? How do you help a child navigate through a learning difficulty? And I know enough young people that I've worked with in the past that can't read or write, but are the most serious kid on the street.
I want to tell you about one of the cruelest, most thoughtless, dumbest things Donald Trump has done in the last week that has flown under the radar screen. Donald Trump announced that he is going to cut off grants for school mental health clinics and community anti-gun violence groups that were part of the bipartisan gun bill we passed in 2022. You remember that bill? First time in 30 years that Republicans and Democrats came together to make changes in our gun laws. But that bill also put billions of dollars into building support services around at-risk kids, both in schools and in our communities. That money was awarded by President Biden. Many of those programs in our schools and our communities got grants for 5 years. Donald Trump just announced that he is going to cut off all of those grant programs illegally.
Jamal is a boy who lives in a poor neighborhood. He has a friend named Kevin who lives in a wealthy neighborhood. All of Jamal's neighbors are African American, and all of Kevin's neighbors are white. Because Jamal's school district is mostly funded by property taxes, his school is not very well funded. His classrooms are overcrowded, his teachers are underpaid, and he doesn't have access to high-quality tutors or extracurricular activities. Kevin's school district is also funded by property taxes, so his school is very well funded. His classrooms are never crowded, his teachers are very well paid, and he has access to high-quality tutors and lots of extracurricular activities. Kevin and Jamal live only a few streets away from each other. So how come they're growing up in such different worlds with such different opportunities for success? The answer has to do with America's history of systemic racism. To understand it better, let's look at what life was like for Kevin and Jamal's grandparents. Decades after the Civil War, many government agencies started to draw maps dividing cities into sections.
Well, you speak of the resources of Antarctica. What are they? We've found enough coal within 180 miles of the South Pole in a great ridge of mountains. It's not covered with snow, enough to supply the whole world for quite a while. Well, that's the coal. Now, there's evidence of many other minerals. We're pretty sure there's oil. Now, that coal shows the bottom of the world. Now, by far, the coldest spot in the world. Where that coal is gets 100 below zero in the winter. It was once tropical. So we think there's oil there, and there's evidence, probably uranium there.
Is it any secret? Is there uranium there? That would be the only thing that would be practical to actually go after, I suppose.
Well, as we recklessly expend our resources, the time will come, and we'll have to go after that stuff down there. Well, I avoided what you said about uranium. I'm not sure about that. I don't want to have the world fighting over the Antarctic.
If you live in the United States, look out for these guys. They've just made their way over from Indonesia to the lower 50 states. But look at this. It's called the Florina stink bug. We're all familiar with stink bugs, but these ones are special there because they will blossom on their back end just like a flower. They've evolutionized this way because humans have a natural reaction to give it a little sniffer and see what it smells like. And it is super pungent. I have smelled these guys. But what will happen is the pheromones that it releases will go up into your nasal cavity, and then this thing will shoot its eggs like lightning. You won't even see it, and they'll go up into your nose and embed in the skin in your nasal cavity. It's not a huge deal. They'll hatch and they'll live up there for about 5 months, and they're super hard to extract, but it will tickle a little bit, but it's not a big deal. They'll just eat the snot, some dead skin, until they're ready to leave as adults, and then they'll spend about a week outside your nasal cavity, blossom a week later, and the cycle of life starts again.
I actually described President Obama as a Melvillian confidence man, selling us the snake oil of hope and change. Right? I mean, there's no doubt that the symbolic significance of his election mattered. My son, when he was elected, he was 9 years old. He became a grown man with black people in the White House. But he also grew up, right, with the odd juxtaposition and contradiction of a black man in the White House and Michael Brown in the street with a bullet in his head in the Canfield Apartments. Ayanna Mathis, Trayvon Martin, and we can just call the roll. And he also grew up in a time in 2008 when the economy collapsed because of greed. People robbing the coffers of the national government, and housing market collapsed where people lost their homes, and the job market collapsed where the last hired was the first fired. And he saw that the policy response of the Obama administration did not address the misery of black folk in this country in any substantive way. The only argument they could give us was that it would be worse if there were Republicans in office.
Peace, everyone. Salam alaikum. My brother, he came up to me. He said, "Are you American Indian?"
Yeah, Allah. Well, I went and see the style. I love you.
Yes, he was like the real Egypt. He's like, he knows. He knows. So I just want to say shout out to him. Much love, peace, and yeah, he knows. He said the real Egypt is in America.
Yeah, that's you. That's your land, guys.
He knows. Thank you. Shukran. Wake up, everybody. We the only ones